On the morning of April the 1st, 1891, 8-year-old Roubina Sarda and her elder sister were playing with other neighborhood kids in the back streets and alleyways of the Jewish quarters in the main town of Corfu. Their innocent and joyous fun and games were interrupted and cut short, however, when the girl's mother, Lucia Eligier, requested that the girls venture to the local grocery store to purchase some traditional halva. After Eligier gave both girls a 5 note each, they skipped off into the distance. The elder sister took the pathway towards the Jewish quarters, while Roubina took the St. Father's path, which bordered the Christian community. It is possible the siblings were playing the childish game of who will reach the grocery store first. Little did Roubina's friends know at the time that this would be the last time they would see her enthusiastic smile. After a few hours passed, and the father of the Sarda household, Vita, a tailor by trade, returned home from his usual daily work, there were still no signs of Roubina, even though her elder sister had returned home at lunchtime. In a midst of panic, both Vita and Lucia proceeded to frantically ask neighbors, close-by shopkeepers, and any passerby that their petrified and worried glares caught sight of if they had seen little Roubina. After no avail, the distressed parents travelled to the town's police station to express their concerns and declare Roubina's disappearance. The local Jewish community, who initially believed the parents were spreading a tasteless April Fool's joke, rushed to the streets and alleyways in search of the little 8-year-old throughout the Jewish quarters. The local teller, only known as Kangas, rang his bell, alerting the local community of the girl's disappearance all around town. By this time, the bordering Christian community, curious and in search of gossip, began to venture into the Jewish quarters to see what all the fuss was about. Police officers checked all through the area, going door to door in the quest of any information that might lead to the discovery of Roubina, while the Sarda family returned to their household to wait for any news about their youngest daughter's whereabouts. After hours passed and darkness swallowed the cardunia of the quarters, Vita and two of his closest friends, Solomondos Gusteo and Ruben Osmo, who were also members of the Jewish community, decided to go to the local cafeteria on the Liston, straight for a coffee, and to decide their next plan of action. At approximately 1:30 a.m., the trio set off through the alleyways, checking behind each half-open doorway in case they would find Roubina hiding. When they approached the residence of fellow Jew Naxios, they found a bundle sack peeking behind the rotted wooden doorway. Cautiously, they opened the sack, and much to their horror, there was Roubina, her lifeless corpse placed head-first into the sack. Vita, understandably heartbroken and in a peril of tears, scooped up the sack that his daughter had been hidden away in and ran home to notify his wife, cradling the sack as if it was a newborn baby. As he rushed through the dark, cold alleyways and with his voice blanketed by tears, he screamed, "This is where they had her." His two companions, Solomondas and Ruben, gently carried Roubina's corpse behind him. This scene was witnessed by a passing-by police officer, Michalis Kouvaras, who initially believed that the trio were the culprits behind Roubina's disappearance and murder. Kouvaras summarized that Vita and his friends were in a rush to bury the corpse and avoid arrest, a theory plausible if one was to witness a group running through the streets frantically with a corpse. This is also what the officer testified in his statement to the investigator of the island, who, however, did not believe this theory or the possibility that the trio were responsible or at all culpable for the crime after questioning the father and his companions. With the investigator happy with the father's version of events, he decided not to arrest him. Due to this and the fact that his higher-ups disbelieved his version of events, Officer Kouvaras was infuriated. Kouvaras and some of his fellow officers began to spread malicious gossip and rumors about the crime to the Christian community, claiming that he caught the trio red-handed in the act, and after notifying the investigators, they turned a blind eye in a massive cover-up for the despised Jews. Fellow officers and friends of Cuvaras even began to spread copies of his testimony to the whole town, also spreading the conspiracy theory that Roubina, in actual fact, must have been Christian and not Jewish, and that is why the Jews slaughtered her in a blood ritual. The specific blood libel within the symbolism the officers expressed was that the martyred Christian girl was slaughtered as an offering by the Jewish assassins for their Easter celebrations. It is believed that the officer had hoped to create tension between the two partially secluded communities, and were extremely successful as distaste and irritation towards the Jewish community began to implode throughout the island. Vita was subsequently arrested, and the family was kept under house arrest as the rumors and accusations grew day by day. Former head of the Greek parliament, Konstantinos Zavitianos, was the family's lawyer at the time, demanded further investigations to be taken place, and his request was granted and supported by the prosecutor, Theogenis Kefalas. Despite the police's objections, the house arrest of the Sarda family was renounced, and Vita was freed from his holding cell. The Jews on their part began spreading the theory that the Christians were responsible for Roubina's murder in an attempt to blame their community, and created the narrative that they were evil and did not belong on the island. The island's coroner, who examined Roubina's corpse, came to the following disturbing and puzzling conclusions. The first conclusion he came upon was that the murder was committed around 2 a.m. on April the 1st. However, this was around the same time her corpse had been discovered by her father and his two companions. The coroner examined the body for the first time around 8:30 a.m. on the 2nd of April. However, her autopsy was not conducted for a further 4.5 hours at 1 p.m. as concluded on the report. An unexcusable delay, as the coroner even stated himself. His other conclusions were that the sack that Roubina was hidden in contained a large amount of asbestos, possibly in an attempt to cover the smell of her decaying rigor mortis. Her left ear had a small cut on her lobe, most likely from a pair of scissors. Her throat had been slashed, leaving an 8-centimeter wound that had been stuffed with the girl's own hair. The clothes her body was found in did not show any signs of blood, and even more bizarrely, her entire body did not contain even a drop of her blood, which indicated that the girl must have been naked when she was murdered and then redressed. Another conclusion of the examination is that at some point, however undetermined when, Roubina had been sexually assaulted and raped. The coroner theorized that the most likely method and manner that Roubina had been murdered is that the culprits, after murdering the innocent girl by slicing her throat, hung her upside down and beat her corpse until every drop of blood had drained from her body. After this, he redressed her, placed her in the sack in an attempt to hide their crime. However, the conclusion of her death in the medical report was disputed by scientists and a renowned at the time Parisian professor, who indicated that it was clear that Roubina did not draw her last breath due to loss of blood, but by the wounds to her skull, most likely created with a stick or another blunt object. The Parisian also certified that the 8-centimeter wound occurred after her death, and that her blood would have flowed only minimally or not at all. Despite the scientists' and the Parisian's conclusion, local doctors, including Elias Politis, police doctor Dimitrios Papanikolaou, and municipal doctor Frankiskos Thermoyannis, remained adamant that the throat wound was the cause of death and her body was bloodless. It is widely believed that their report was in order to support the police's accusations and theories that were spreading like wildfire throughout the island's inhabitants, and in reality was extremely beneficial in brainwashing the largely uneducated population that Roubina had been sacrificed in a Jewish blood libel ritual. her blood needed for their traditional Easter Mazot. Prosecutor Kevalas also confirmed this in his writings, that it was after this conclusion it seemed as if proof had given life to the police officers' wild accusations, and that the motion of massive scandal and cover-up in aid of protecting the Jewish population by the prosecutors, judges, and military authorities who were being bribed to protect the Jews of the island and allowing the killers to be set free so they could vote in future elections. By this point, it was evident that police authorities and members of the judicial system were on opposing sides. Secretly, public attorneys and interrogators began to question the local population and certain officers asked to determine who were responsible for the mass spread of the false claims, which led straight back to the police, leading to the imprisonment of two officers, Christos Lavranos and Dimitris Agathos. Interrogation and questioning, which was mainly being conducted throughout the Jewish community, proceeded from then on without the presence of Deputy Officer Nikolaos Alavanas, Officer Napoleondas Pieris, and Chief Constable Adonios Pilos, who were the original interrogators of witnesses and suspects. However, the consequence of this decision led to more accusations against the judiciaries of a cover-up and bias towards the Jews in a quest for their own personal future political goals. Police in their defense claimed to the public that they had been pushed aside by the higher-ups in order to protect the perpetrators of Roubina's murder. From lawyers to farmers, to doctors and merchants, each class from the lower to the higher, especially people with political aspirations, picked their sides and theories and spread them ferociously around the island in order to state their claims and political goals. The rumours were mainly taken advantage of with the intentions of expelling the Jewish community from their ancestral land, especially by inhabitants who would financially gain without the presence of the Jews in the area. Some rumours were spread by plainly gullible citizens. No matter the reasons or matter the rumours and accusations spread, the damage was done, and were the prelude for the savage barbarity that was about to terrify the Jewish quarters. Immediately, violence against the Israelites began, which was secretly encouraged by the political party of the opposition. Groups of citizens came into the Jewish district, injuring, beating, and calling the Israelites names or shooting them. Other Christian citizens, when coming across other Jews outside the Jewish district, would threaten them and hitting them with any object, spreading fear and terror, which caused despair to the Jews and forced them to abandon their homeland. Other Christians threw the Jews' boarding ships to depart for foreign lands into the sea, destroyed their monuments, in that sense also practicing symbolic violence, and others publicly advocated against the Jews in squares, coffee houses, taverns, and wherever there are groups of citizens where those belonged to the opposition has a primary role. Such individuals, twisting every governmental effort to keep peace and adopting every false rumour that could ignite the spirit of the people, regularly sent texts and short articles to Athenian opposition newspapers in order to create a general evil mood. All these anti-Jewish actions occurred before the eyes of the police officers, who were inside the Jewish district, at least in theory, in order to defend the Jews and apprehend guilty individuals, but who covered for the actions of the latter, encouraging them with such an attitude. Despite powerful military forces patrolling the Jewish district, assaults against the Jews continued. The local and Athenian press had frequent, if not daily, correspondent on the Jewish fairs of Corfu, which expanded to include neighbouring areas, like Zakynthos. The rumour of the ritual murder was not the only one. There were many other rumours, especially because a murder is always a fascinating story, and the murder of a child even more so. Regarding the various rumours and theories circulating at the time, there is no way of assessing in which order they started, which fact is less important. The first array of rumours was connected to stories of love, or with even greater imaginations, to sex and crime, that a young man was in love with Roubina, but it was not reciprocated, and that he murdered her in revenge. Another version was that Roubina would tease men sexually, and that an egg-seller tried to have full sexual contact with her, and in rage at her refusal, he killed her. Or that she had been unwillingly taken to a brothel, had resisted, and was killed. A second array of rumours surrounded the family drama of Roubina. She was reported as having bad morals, being locked in to an order of Sisters of Mercy. She had been beaten by her father until she was unconscious, and finally killed in error. Or alternatively, she was rumoured to have been the family Sarda's unloved daughter, and that the father murdered her out of pure hatred. Newspapers reported a wide variety of theories. The third array of rumours was around the accusations of ritual murder, that the murdered girl's name was in fact Maria Vesila, and she came from Yanina, that Vita Sarda employed her as a maid, that his plan from the beginning was to ritually sacrifice her at a later date, or that Roubina, with the permission of the Sarda's family, was sacrificed by the Jewish community for ceremonial reasons, or a daring and even more absurd version, that Roubina as a Jew was murdered by Christians with the aim of making it seem as if the Jewish community at Corfu had committed a ritual murder. The detailed description of the injuries in such a way as to evoke ritual murder intensified. Indeed, it was this version which monopolized attention relatively quickly. In one of the initial relevant articles that was published in an Athenian newspaper about Roubina's murder read, "The dead body has many injuries, incurred by a sharp object on the chest and the arteries, by a needle on the forehead, while some injuries on the face and the hands are covered with lime. It is indeed difficult for one to explain the reason why the despicable malefactors used such ways to kill the young innocent girl. The mystery becomes more obfuscated when it is taken into account that while the Jew, to whom it is said that the massacred maiden belongs to, said that he had 5 children, while from the official announcement of the rabbi it results that he had 4. Consequently, the murdered maiden is Christian, going by the name Maria Vesila, orphan of her father kidnapped in Yanina in order to be mercilessly sacrificed, a tradition which is considered by many to be custom of the Jews. But that rumour is falsified by the announcement of the mayor of Corfu, who certifies that the maiden is Jewish, as can be seen from the archives of the arch-rabbi. The editor of the article continues by saying that he cannot believe that a religion, even Judaism, allows such garish customs, and that the race of Jews cultivates such customs in Greece, concluding that even that specific superstition is that the Israelites partake of the Christian blood of a boy, never a girl. Of these 3 different categories of rumours, sexual topics, family drama, and the ritual murder accusations, it was the third that dominated. Apparently at that time, there could not be any other rumour more interesting. Family drama as a motive was just too private and could not have interested the mass of society a lot. In the late 19th century, sexual affairs were a real taboo and did not matter as a topic for the large society of a Greek provincial place. On the contrary, the rumour about a possible ritual murder had the best characteristics for a rumour to be spread out quickly for several reasons, as detailed below. The whole issue initially took on huge proportions against the Jews of the island. On the contrary, the rumour about a possible ritual murder had the best characteristics for a rumour to be spread out quickly for several reasons. The whole issue initially took on huge proportions against the Jews of the island. An initial attack on the Jewish district on the 3rd of April ended up in an uprising, resulting in the Jewish district being closed off by military forces after the order of Lacos, mayor of the city. During the traditional procession of the epitaph, an event which assembled approximately 7,000 to 8,000 Christians, several different groups of fanatic city dwellers tried to break into the Jewish district. In panic, the responsible military guardsmen ordered guns to be used. Due to this, 5 Christian citizens were killed, 5 were hurt, and a lot of property was damaged. Vandalism and terror, according to the letter found in the Delianis archive, which describes the incident in detail, three classes of people were involved in the vandalisms of Good Friday. The first and greatest part was organised by the opposition government, the second by thieves and robbers, and the least part was organised by those who were religiously spurred by honesty and stupidity and helping the offenders without realising what they were doing. These events in Corfu caused a general outcry against Greece from abroad. Governments of European states sent statements to the Greek government expressing their grave concern about the turbulent situation in Corfu and about the tragic living conditions of Corfu's Jews. Because of their confinement in the ghetto for more than 3 weeks after they were locked in by the state. To appease the negative opinion about Greece, the then ambassador of Greece in London, Ioannis Genaveos, condemned the behaviour of Corfu's inhabitants in an article entitled "The Greek Ambassador on the Jews in Greece," published in the Daily News on the 25th of May 1891. He spoke with disdain about the Ionians who reminded us that the medieval Venetian tradition has not been eradicated on Ionian islands. Even if the indecencies which saddened us all could be seen as a burst of popular sentiment, we strongly believe that they could not be found in any other part of Greece. Finally, he upheld that the greater part of the Greek people was innocent, while along the same lines they felt outraged and ashamed of the occurrences on the Ionian Islands. The most important issue, which was to find the killer of little Roubina Sarda, was abandoned. The murderer was never punished, even though many lives were lost. Both sides indulged in atrocities. Corfu was humiliated throughout Europe. The result was the death of around 80 Jews and the immigration of about 2,500 from the island, where about 2,000 remained and were eventually exterminated by the Nazis. After the elections, the situation eased as there were no longer vigilantes to ignite new tensions and bloodshed. As it turned out, the murder was just the pretext. Political factions, press reports, and all who wished to poison Jewish-Christian relations took advantage of the murder and popular sentiment in order to accomplish their purpose. And in a way, sadly, they did.